Honda International Trading, or HIT as we used to call it, was established with a clear purpose: to make the Pacific a two-way ocean. This included not only the trade of goods and services, but creating positive cultural interaction and cultural understanding. From the beginning, HTA was something of a secret weapon for Honda. And in this way, we worked to make the world smaller by connecting different countries and people.
HIT established a spirit of innovation in the early days that is still part of HTA today. When I started, it was the idea of boosting the balance of trade from America and finding things Japan doesn't have naturally or can easily obtain. But our purpose really evolved into our ability to add value.
Honda had a fleet of vessels run by ACT Maritime, all carrying the Wing name that was such a symbol for the Honda brand: the World Wing, Continental Wing, and Pacific Wing. These ships brought Honda products to North America, cars and motorcycles, and the Wing fleet became the icon of our trading business. And in the coming years, when we began auto production in Honda, the important role HTA would play in supporting our US production became clear.
My first job was managing empty containers and chassis for the Honda vessels. I didn't even know what a container was when I was hired. We would pick up the chassis and containers in LA, fill it with waste paper, and ship it back to Japan. We shipped all kinds of items: aluminum scrap that would get smelted into components, canned goods, even pregnant Jersey heifers for the dairy industry. Our agriculture business grew to include many different commodities, including cattle, shiitake mushrooms, soybeans, and more.
In 1979, after about 6 months on the job, my boss, Fujiwara-san, said, "George, why don't you take a trip to Ohio? Honda is building a motorcycle plant there, and you should just go and look around." I had no contacts in Ohio and didn't meet anyone from Honda. The Marysville motorcycle plant was just a steel frame. But soon after, I understood why he wanted me to go. This is part of Honda. You need to go to the Gamba to see what is happening. Even if there is no immediate purpose, you can learn why we are doing things. The philosophy of building products locally by going to the spot.
Honda was a big proponent of Gamba. They never hesitated to support me going to the spot and observing for myself how things actually worked. And that was an important part of understanding the problems, the needs of the business, and coming up with a workable solution. And so we would go places and count things, assets that the company owned, whether it was steel coils or hay, bales in a barn, or soybeans in a bin. Honda gave us the opportunity to help them count those things and keep track of them. And that was at the spot and how we learned about the business, one of the ways.
When Honda began moving from a two-way ocean and into a global operation, Honda had factories that were emerging all around the world. So American Honda, Ham at the time, and HTA were involved in putting together processes to supply all of these parts to these different factories.
American Honda was responsible for the export program. There were so many parts being exported that it was impossible to manage those operations without a system. Steel coils are expensive, and one coil could basically pay for a finished vehicle. So we created a software system for steel and procedures to track and manage the inventory. AHM was custom building that system, and HTA was involved to support with customs requirements. American Honda had an aggressive deadline, and HTA had to decide whether we would build a system on our own in case their system wasn't ready in time. And that's what we did. When the deadline arrived and shipments began, the HTA system was ready, so our system was chosen as the solution. And it worked so well that it wasn't replaced for many, many years.
Because there was a philosophy of empowerment and continuous learning, our leaders put us into positions where we were not subject matter experts. We were asked to take on and even lead areas where we had never had exposure to before. But some of the principles that we learned in the Honda philosophy, Honda Trading's approach to business, it was actually pretty easy to adapt if you were open-minded and willing to learn.
My first assignment when I joined the company in 1987 here in Los Angeles was to work with the aluminum scrap dealers in the area, as well as secondary aluminum ingot makers. And at the time, everything that we did here in Los Angeles was being exported to Japan. So it was kind of a combination of, purchasing and learning about the raw materials, as well as learning all the functions of exporting and whatnot, because back then most of the production was still taking place in Japan, so all of the cars were being imported. It was a path that took me from where I started in Los Angeles to Ohio, where we were growing our support of Honda and supplier production operations, and finally to Mexico to help stabilize the local HT and auto production operations in both Guadalajara and Celaya. We managed the entire supply chain from A to Z, and we were smaller, so we could be more creative to make things happen.
The KD supply chain had 20 years to evolve and get perfected from Japan to here, and in a very short span of time, we were now exporting to 18 countries from the United States. And so HTA supported American Honda, who had the sales role, and Ham IDPS, who had the parts sourcing role, with the logistics and the trade compliance operations that went around enabling those outbound flows of material to those overseas plants.
I worked in our catalytic converter business at a time when the Berlin Wall came down and Nelson Mandela was released in South Africa. The two biggest sources of platinum and rhodium were Russia and South Africa. So this was a very stressful time to ensure supply.
Honda went from a relatively small production operation in central Ohio to now 5 factories in Ohio, South Carolina, Alabama, and Indiana. As Honda manufacturing operations grew, HTA offices were established to support them. I started in the Ohio office, and I was the project leader responsible for opening the HTA offices in South Carolina and Alabama. I remember sitting on a milk crate in Alabama because there was no office. It was just all dirt. But that was the philosophy of being at Gamba.
Back in the mid-2000s, Honda and many of the global automotive suppliers are moving to lighter materials to try to meet fuel efficiency standards, emission standards, and HTA, being an integral part of the supply chain, was tasked with finding alternative materials, and aluminum were some of those materials.
If we take the beginning of the Anna engine plant aluminum supply, they had already had a small group of people that was buying aluminum for their own in-house needs. And we were there to convince them that these people that they didn't know well from 50 miles away in Marysville could do a better job for all of Honda to buy their aluminum. And naturally, when you're talking about shifting responsibilities, there's resistance. They initially said they didn't need this program, that they were fine without us. But really, it was through persistence and sharing facts, validating how we can improve the overall buy for Honda and control our spend and our price better. They were ultimately convinced. It really instilled in me the power of engaging your customer. And in this case, face-to-face is the most powerful thing you can do. But Without any question, we went right to the customer, right to the site, and talked to them. And we also began making sure that we weren't going to interrupt their production. So it proves our value, it builds your character as an individual associate, and it builds a better relationship with that customer.
When we look to the future, Honda needs to have a sustainable product. We have a full life cycle of mining something from the ground to finally end-of-life recycling that product. Honda Trading has touch points in these areas to make Honda a stronger company globally. We can bring solutions for recycling, we can bring solutions for commodity procurement, we can bring solutions for global transportation.
Honda has set this huge, ambitious goal to be carbon neutral by 2050. It's a challenge across the industry. Of course, Honda Trading is going to participate. Of course, Honda Trading is going to evolve and support that objective fully and actively. The ability for us to be able to adapt, that strong sense of it being able to change what we do and how we do it, we'll have to use that creativity, that innovation to be able to achieve all these objectives that we're talking about in the future. Honda allows us to contribute fully. And I know people say that all the time. People say, oh, everyone wants this engagement rule. But really, Honda allows you to do things. All of my career, anything that I ever wanted to do, if I had an idea and I told somebody and somebody would be like, yeah, go try it. And that whole atmosphere of trying something and doing something, even if I failed or if it wasn't very successful, which I've had those, that this whole idea that you can do anything is quite amazing in Honda.
It's actually one of the things I really value about the time I spent with Honda. They cared more about my capabilities than they did my credentials. They gave me chances to learn and do things that I otherwise wouldn't have had.
The experiences that this organization has had over the past 50 years are numerous. We've survived hurricanes, we've survived supply shocks, we've survived bankruptcies, we've survived shipping crises. Like a piece of metal, it's tempered us. We've learned some valuable lessons. As Honda embarks upon new technologies, it's given us a good foundation upon which to build. It's given us experience necessary to ensure that we can take a couple punches and keep these lines going.
"50 years ago, we had new dreams and the challenging spirit to explore new frontiers. I love the role of HTA and the work in advance of the rest of the company. But now, we are a big company and need to refocus on our original spirit and mindset without being bound by existing business. My dream is for associates to continue exploring new worlds and lead the Honda Group towards an exciting and sustainable future.
My dream is for HTA to become even more diverse, innovative, and creative.
My dream for HTA's future is to be a part of the next generation, to bring a new way of doing things.
My dream for Honda Trading is that we become a company that sets the global standard.